When Browns quarterback DeSean Watson was suspended for just 6 games after being hit with dozens of accusations of misconduct, it perfectly crystallized the inconsistency of how the NFL treats discipline. And that was further reinforced when the NFL appealed that decision and slapped him with an 11-game suspension and a $5 million fine. Watson's initial suspension was handed down by a retired federal judge. Then the NFL themselves appealed the ruling and negotiated Watson's final punishment. Is the NFL really trying to change its ways, or is it trying to save face in the court of public opinion? Full stop. The NFL's wheel of discipline has been broken for a long time. Let's answer that first question and dive deep into the dark history of inconsistent justice, and that's coming up right after this. Ah yes, another football season, and if you got dragged to a wedding during kickoff, well, you need Raycons. Raycons are your go-to noise-isolating, discreet, high-quality earbuds that come in clutch like Justin Tucker. Pop these bad boys in and listen to the game instead of that BS holy matrimony. It's good! It's not just these optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit that don't budge no matter what. It's also the 8 hours of playtime and 32 hours of battery life. With over 49,000 5-star reviews, you'd think these were expensive, but they aren't. Raycons are half the price of other premium brands. For me, I love the sound profiles that allow me to switch things up so I can pretend to care about where I am. You can either isolate noise or go to awareness mode. Don't get yelled at because you didn't hear the vowels. Plus, you have pure sound, balanced sound, and bass sound, all tailored to fit your needs. And Raycons now work with standard wireless charging systems. So after this video, go to buyraycon.com/5 points from the link below and get 15% off your Raycon purchase. Again, that's buyraycon.com/5 points from the link below and get 15% off your purchase. Since Roger Goodell took hold of the NFL's hammer of death in 2006, the league has set an incredibly inconsistent precedent for suspensions and which violations merit which penalties. Deshaun Watson was initially banned, the exact same penalty that DeAndre Hopkins got when he tested positive for trace amounts of a banned substance called Osterine or Osterine. Whatever, it was banned. How is the punishment for testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs the same as traumatizing and warning victims into unpleasant acts? The NFL ended up pushing back against this notion, but their inconsistent and warped sense of justice has initially put both of these violations on the same level of wrongdoing, which they are absolutely not. One of the first big decisions for Goodell took place following an October 2006 game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans, when Titans star defensive tackle Albert Haynesworth treated Cowboys center Andre Guerrero's head like a muscat grape in a large stomping bat. Rude had to receive 30 stitches and could have filed charges against Haynesworth, but decided against it. I guess sometimes non-snitches also get stitches. For what was essentially an on-field scene from American History X, Haynesworth received just a 5-game suspension. A good chunk of the media argued that Haynesworth deserved more than 5 games, preferably an entire season, and they might have had a point. But according to precedent, Goodell had actually swung the hammer harder than anyone who came before him. Prior to the Haynesworth incident, the longest suspension following an on-field incident was just 2 games, all the way back to when Packers defensive end Charles Martin body slammed Bears quarterback Jim McMahon, well after McMahon had gotten rid of the ball and wasn't even involved in the play. Seriously, this was a bitch move. When placed in historical context, Goodell was more punitive than his predecessor, 2.5 times more to be exact. And when you fast forward to the 2019 season, we can see that Goodell has remained more or less consistent when it comes to on-field acts of violence. We'll get to off-field in a bit. When Myles Garrett tried to use Mason Rudolph's head as a tennis ball with his own helmet, Goodell slapped Garrett with a 6-game ban, just more than one he gave Haynesworth. Over a decade later, it's hard to argue with that kind of consistency, though who knows what would have happened if Garrett would have connected on that serve. It's when we step away from on-field incidents and zoom out to view the big picture. It's pretty confusing knowing what else warrants a 5 or 6-game suspension or beyond. For example, former Ohio State quarterback Terrell Pryor was banned for the first 5 games of his NFL career for accepting improper benefits. while in college. Pryor was technically suspended by the NCAA, but when he declared for the supplemental draft to duck that suspension, Goodell mandated that he must miss 5 games regardless. And while there's consistency and principle in that discipline, it was hardly justice, especially considering it's the same 5 games that Haynesworth got for trying to squish another player's head like his name was Nadia. Pryor's suspension happened in 2011, and a year before, Captain Fatfuck was suspended just 4 games, down from 6 following an appeal, when he did all that stuff in Georgia that we seem to have forgotten about. If not for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers that year, Goodell might have had to hand the Lombardi Trophy to Roethlisberger, the same year he had suspended the Steelers quarterback for, that stuff the media whitewashed. That same level of awkwardness did eventually ensue 6 years later. It didn't take long for Roger Goodell and the New England Patriots to get on each other's bad side. In 2007, Jets head coach Eric Mangini blew the whistle on Spygate, a scandal that alleged the Patriots were participating in illegal videotaping sideline signals in order to gain an edge on their opponents. The new commissioner didn't hand out any suspensions, but Pats head coach Bill Belichick was fined $500,000, the largest fine ever imposed on a head coach, and the maximum fine possible under league rules. It didn't end with just a check being cut. Goodell stripped the Patriots of their first-round pick in 2008, the first time the NFL had stripped a team of their first-rounder since the Dolphins in 1971, when they were punished for tampering. But the Patriots and Goodell became enemies in 2007, and 7 years later, when Deflategate reared its ugly head, the two sides were once again at odds. The Patriots were underinflating footballs below legal limits to help Tom Brady throw the ball, because incrementally lowered PSI definitely is the secret that allows Tom Brady to throw a football accurately. And there was never really any smoking gun. A lot of he said, she said, aside from a destroyed cell phone, but that didn't keep Goodell from swinging the hammer once again. Goodell fined the Patriots $1 million and stripped them of a first and fourth round pick in the draft. After multiple appeals and battles with the NFLPA that lasted a year, the Ginger Hammer was finally able to suspend Tom Brady for the first 4 games of the 2016 season. Maybe that extra rest was good for Brady, as he seemed pretty fresh in the second half of Super Bowl 51. What happened in that game again? Extreme awkwardness ensued in the post-game celebration when Roger Goodell handed the Lombardi to Patriots owner Robert Kraft, while simultaneously being showered by boos from Pats fans. The ones that didn't leave early, like Marky Mark Wahlberg. This moment captured something people had already begun to realize. In suspending Tom Brady, Goodell had inadvertently made the statement that deflating footballs was no more worthy of punishment than what Ben Roethlisberger was alleged to have done. In fact, it was worse than what another infamous NFL player had done prior to the 2014 season. We all know what Ray Rice did and what happened after that. After Ray Rice had been indicted by a grand jury on charges of aggravated assault, the NFL handed down a suspension. 2 games. Just 2 measly games. A couple months later, TMZ obtained and released a video of the Ray Rice incident. Then the Ravens turned around and released Ray Rice after John Harbaugh had sat down and watched the video. Furthermore, the NFL changed their suspension from 2 games to indefinite, which typically signals a year-long ban. Goodell had already received heat for the light suspension before the video was released. This all begs the question, what about a video makes an incident more egregious than previously thought? Doesn't really eliminate doubt that the event occurred, but to the NFL it was like their illusions had been shattered when they finally saw the tape. It was a turning point for Goodell, who that same year punished Adrian Peterson severely for, how do we say this without getting demonetized, ironically harsh discipline of his child. He put Peterson on an exempt list, then suspended him for the rest of the season. Concurrent with all this, Josh Gordon was getting suspended for entire seasons and indefinitely banned for smoking weed, something that hurt only him. And that leads us to today, where there's been a lot more damage done to others than what to DeSean Watson did to his own reputation. After the 6-game suspension was levied by Judge Sue L. Robinson, Roger Goodell was left unsatisfied, calling Watson's behavior predatory and egregious. So he went back and tried to edit history, nearly doubling the suspension in a move that reeked of somehow making the NFL be the good guy wielding the big stick here. But the reality of the situation is that Robinson, the judge, was actually not too lenient in suspending Watson for 6 games. She was merely following the precedent that Goodell himself had established over the first decade and a half of his NFL career. Her decision was informed by Ben Roethlisberger's suspension, Jameis Winston's 2018 suspension, and multiple others. By implementing a harsher suspension, Goodell is not protesting a federal judge. He's trying to gain redemption and absolve himself of past mistakes. But you know, if only from the start, Roger Goodell knew someone with enough power in the league to hand out a more lengthy suspension than the judge. If only. And that just reinforces how broken the NFL's wheel of justice really is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do all that stuff, like subscribe, that would help me. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to my next video.